Good evening. We're back. It's Saturday Night Live on a Saturday, which is where it belongs, really, hence the title. We had a one night on a Sunday. We didn't like it too much. It was all right. So here we are, back on Saturday, back with the usual motley crew. And my goodness, this is the one we've all been waiting for. It got postponed due to terrible scheduling by me. And as a result, here we are. But it's going to have to be postponed just slightly longer due to the fact that Mr. Romano's decided that tonight was a good night to tweet out that it looks like we are going to be getting Rasmus Højlund. I'm hearing possibly between 60 and 70 million quid. So it seems absolutely right and fair that we should begin this evening by asking what you esteemed gentlemen think of this interesting piece of business that Mr. Ten Hag has gone for. So, Dan, hello, how are you doing? And what's your thoughts?
Oh, I'm all right. I'm basically just arguing about this already on Twitter. Obviously the fee's high. I get that some people call it eye-watering. I don't see that myself. Good signing. I'm happy with it. It's gone early. Still feel like we need somebody else, irrelevant of signing him, because he's still raw. I'm a bit on the fence with it, to be honest. The price tag's not really an issue for me because you buy in essence, you're buying potential. And 2 decades on from paying £30 million for Wayne Rooney, I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying Rooney cost us 30 million 2 decades ago, and Rasmus Højlund's cost 70 million now. It'll be interesting. I still want to see Harry Kane signed, but I just don't think we're going to do that.
I'll be honest, it's not looking likely, is it? But there you go. I mean, if he wants to spend another year winning nothing, that's up to him, really, isn't it? He can come and win nothing with us. Let's get stands, but we'll see. Andrew, nice to have you here, sir. What's your thoughts on this? What's looking like new signing?
It's a good buy. I think it's going to be a good buy from United. I think from the evidence of the other night against Real Madrid, it was a bit of a glaring issue. We needed an out number 9. So as much as relying on Rashford last season for most of the goals, it was going into this pre-season, it's become pretty evident that that was the area we needed to strengthen the most coming into the Premier League season. So it's definitely a player that Ten Hag wanted as well, and so it's like, let's say, he's one for the future. Like I say, he's probably going to be starting most games next season if he arrives. So it's like trying not to put too much pressure on him to start with, because he's going to have to get used to the Premier League as well. But from what I've been reading, it says his better performances have come when he's playing for the national side. So I think so the Premier League is a different league compared to Serie A as well. So, but let's say with Ten Hag, he'll slowly mould Højlund to into the side and his vision as well. So all led to believe. I look forward to seeing him on the first game of the season.
I mean, Stu, inevitably there's going to be pressure on this young man, isn't there? I mean, long gone, I think, seems to be the days where you can be Diego Forlan, come along and not score in about 800 games, and then have your entire career rescued by a couple of good goals against Liverpool. What's your thoughts on Mr. Højlund turning up, and do you think that the pressure will be on him immediately?
Look, pressure's a myth in football. Trust me, it's an absolute myth. To go and do something you absolutely crave, love, is, when people say, pressure, it's an absolute myth. Playing for Manchester United is difficult enough as it is, without being an unproven striker. And I think Dan's right. He's having this argument because he's an unproven striker. And Andrew equally is correct that the Madrid game just showed how desperate we are for a clinical number 9. And you need a real clinician. And later on in the show, a clinician will become before your very eyes. And this is what we've missed since that guy put on the red shirt. Somebody who knows where the goal is, who can anticipate where the cross is going to land, make himself look a fool because he's diving for something that possibly isn't going to get there, but it actually might get there. and it might come off his shoulder, his ear, anything. That is what a clinician does in front of goal. That's what a number 9 does. And people can talk about everything they want to about Haaland. Now, when you look at him as an outfield player, he's no better than anybody. He's rubbish technically out there, but you put him anywhere near the goal, you just give him one little sight of goal, and that kid hits the target. And that's the key. He hits the target. Now, I've seen, look, I'm not I'm not an expert of this kid, Højlund, and I defy anybody, any real Manchester United fan, to tell me they are, because the way that our fan base is, and that includes me, and you know, when we're linked with somebody, wow, he's the only player to go and get. In Ten Hag, we trust. I get all of that, but will he deliver us? And he must deliver us 25 goals, because if he doesn't, we're not going to progress up front. Because we do need Harry Kane, who would guarantee us, in my humble opinion, 35 goals next season. So I'm really chuffed. I think Jennifer's absolutely right. You know, Gary Birtles was a clinician outside of Manchester United when it came to Forest, but when he came to us, he wasn't. Højlund will obviously play the type of, I'm guessing, Sebastian Haller role that he turned into a world beater. If you can do that, I suppose you can do that with anyone at Ajax. So, look, I think we've got a great signing for 2 years down the line. I have a really good signing, but I'm not so sure it's what we need today. And that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I'd love to be wrong, and I'd love him to score 40 goals next season, come onto YouTube and rinse me for 2 hours. Feel free. But we shall see. We shall see. I like him as a player, but is he what we need right now? And I think I think we have agreed so far. We'll wait and see what John says, that he's not exactly what we need today, but he is tomorrow. He's one of those, really.
Yeah. We'll move on to you with John on that one. Hello again to you as well. And more importantly, on this one, is he, as Boris Johnson would say, oven ready, or does he need defrosting first?
Yeah, well, I think he's like most of us. I haven't seen very much of him. Based on what I've seen of him, it's only a few videos, and I think his movement's pretty good. Obviously, I'm not the biggest fan of judging on international football, but he's obviously currently the top scorer in the European qualifiers at the moment for Denmark, which he's obviously doing well there. And for me, I think it'll be interesting because he's Danish and we've got Eriksen and that. So obviously they'll have that link up international level. It might be fruitful for us for United. I agree with the fee. It's obviously going to, a lot of people will be thinking, right, you got to deliver soon, which I agree with Stu. I don't think he's a signing for now, but signing for maybe 2 or 3 years down the line when I think you'll see the very best of him. And that I think he's, we've been saying all summer, I think we need 2 strikers. We need a striker for now, and we need a striker for 2 or 3 years down the line. And I think he fits into the 1, 2, 3 years down the line. That being said, he's better than nothing anyway. So, and for that kind of thing, I think he probably would have to start most games. I would say so. It'll be interesting to see how we team cohesion. It's a shame really that we didn't do the signings a couple of weeks back when he could have had 3 or 4 pre-seasons game. Instead, he's probably only going to get 1 before the season starts. So that's a shame, and it'll obviously take him time to get used to United. But having said that, he is a bit like Mount, a bit like Onana. They were very willing to come to United. He rejected PSG and I think it says a lot that he says, I want to play for United, I want to play Ten Hag. So I have no doubt that he's got the right attitude. Ten Hag, as we know, I think is very level-headed. He'll bring him up well and that kind of thing. And I think it's a positive signing, but like every sign, I think we've just got to be a bit patient with him.
Absolutely. And just before we move on to what this whole show is supposed to be about, just a word on pre-season in general, and also in the rumours that Amrabat could be the next person to be brought in. Do we feel like we need someone like Amrabat in the midfield? And how would you rate what we've done so far in terms of the transfer market? Are we content with what ETH is doing, Dan?
Yeah, I'm pretty content. I think he's done quite a good job so far. I think the club's done a decent job so far. They've got players in early, players that he wants. Just to touch on John's point, he's got players in that not only does F want, that actually want to come. And I think that is something that I've spoke about on the channel myself for months. I don't really care about the price, whether it's low or high, as long as the player wants to come and they come in for more than money. It sounds like that every player that's joined so far are on fair wages to a point. I think it was only Mason Mount's wages that I really thought maybe that's a little bit too much. But everybody else seems fine. And it's the same with Amrabat as well. It sounds like his wage demands aren't too high. He wants to come. He's the sort of midfielder that you could argue we need, but at the same time, I think we have that kind of midfielder already, but Ten Hag just doesn't trust them to do the job. So it's another reason why you would want him in and maybe ship one or two out. I think a lot is going to come down. What is it? 163 million we've spent now. I think a lot's going to come to how we sell. Obviously, West Ham offered 20 million for Harry Maguire, which some people would snap at their hands off for. I think it's a bit embarrassing to offer that much, to be honest. I think it should have been minimum 40. We should be looking to get for Maguire. Whether you rate him, don't rate him, or wherever you stand with him, he's still one of the best English centre-backs, and he still does it for England every single time they go. I think he's still got 3 years left on his deal as well. So we should be looking at that. Same with McTominay, the same 40 to 45 million. I think that's now the average cost for players. Whether you're a up-and-comer or a superstar, the base rate seems to be 40 to 50 million pounds, no matter where you look. You look at what Rice has just gone for. So I think it's 105 million. And I've said before on the channel, I would have loved to get for us to have gone for Rice. I think he's an absolute fantastic player. But 105 million, it's absolutely crazy where football is at in terms of the money market. I'm quite content. I think they've done a really good job. Again, I would love to see Harry Kane come in, just because Højlund is obviously one for the future. I'm not expecting him to pull trees up, but can you imagine him getting game time or training time with somebody like Harry Kane? It would be absolutely phenomenal stuff. So, yeah, I'm hoping that miracle still happens, but I don't think it will. I think it will just go how well we sell now. And it's about time as a club we sold a lot better. So fingers crossed they get on that.
Absolutely. Listen, I'm not going to lie. I consider myself to be a good host. I try and let everybody have their opportunity to speak. And as a result, Connor's nicked me joke. I'm absolutely gutted. I was going to say, I think Stu's just been on the phone. Even trying to sort the Amrabat deal. We're going to get an exclusive on the channel.
Yes, that was it.
I mean, I don't quite know how to feel about this. The fact that Connor's beat me to a joke, and it was a good one. I can't tell if that's just me being a good influence on Connor or what, but there we go. We'll see.
It was a very good joke.
We'll throw it over to you, Andrew. We've had 5 pre-season games now. We've won 3 of them. We've lost 2, the latest 2. We were really pleased about beating Arsenal, considering they'd put out most of their top players. We put out most of our top players against Real Madrid. Do you pay any attention to the pre-season games whatsoever and how the results go?
Not really. Pre-season, let's say, it's just to build the get the minutes in the players and their fitness up. As like I say, in the past we've had not so good pre-season, good pre-seasons. You can't read too much going into the season, because once the season starts, every team's wanting to beat each other. Pre-season so far, I've been happy with it, but there's still work to do, and I think Ten Hag will freely admit that as well. Obviously, the Real Madrid game lacking that clinical edge up top, but hopefully that's going to be corrected now with Højlund coming in as well. But also, pre-season defence looks more solid. And now, so with Martinez and Varane, been good in defence. We did miss them towards the end of last season, but it seems like now they're back together. They picked up where they left. Let's say, and now with Onana in goal as well, I'm just thinking, that back line will get even more solid. So even though Onana's had one game himself, you say he made a handful of saves as well. So, and he was the constant option, for those, the players, when they had to come back towards the goal. So he was there, to alleviate any pressure. So the only slight downside of pre-season is Kobe Mainoo getting injured, and now the update is saying he's going to miss the first part of the season. But it is what it is. So I'm sure he'll bounce back, and and just like with Diallo, look, his injury wasn't as serious, so I think he might be quicker back onto the pitch than Mainoo is. But yeah, so far so good. But still work to do.
Absolutely. So Stu, what's the hot news? Is Amrabat coming?
Yeah, he's on his way. That was my agent's fee. I was actually negotiating. He was asking for something ridiculous like 80 grand a week, and I said, well, look, I need 20 grand of that, so go for 100. So we're trying to strike a deal based on that. So I want 20 grand a week off him.
Oh, you're coming in to replace Johnny Evans, Stu.
Well, again, I had Johnny Evans' mum on the phone the other day, and I said, well, look, this is how you look after old knees as you're getting old. This is what you do. So I gave her some tips on what he can do to stay fit, during the season. So I've shipped out my carbon fibre Zimmer frame for him. It should arrive in the US tonight, actually. So he should be ready for that when he takes a pitch against Dortmund. So,
is there any truth in the rumour that one of the requests that he asked for when he arrived is that he wanted all of the Skittles sorted by colour?
That is absolutely correct, and he wanted pink. So they have to go and spray paint Skittles to pink. But that's JA for you then. So so talking of JA, what do we think of Sancho's future? Oh, we'll talk about that in a moment. So just quickly, pre-season. I'm with the lads. I don't pay much attention to it. I think our shining light was by far KP Mino, and I think that will actually accelerate the Amrabat deal now. I think Amrabat was going to come in potentially, but they may have waited a little bit longer because Mino was absolutely superb. But I do think that maybe they'll accelerate that deal now. In terms of pre-season as a whole, the only glaring thing for me was striker. We need a striker. So I just hope that. I have this funny feeling that Harry Kane might walk through our doors on the 31st of August. Just got that feeling.
There are a few reports just dropping now after the Højlund deal that Harry Kane wanted £575,000 a week, which is why the deal has not been looked at. Whether or not it's true,
who's reporting that?
it's
surely not.
Heard from Times Sport. He's saying that Kane wanted £575,000 a week, and Tottenham was looking for a fee of up to 100 million.
Well, the fee, I totally agree, but I don't buy that. I don't buy 575 grand a week. I don't.
It'd be an interesting one because I had this same discussion on Twitter this week. I didn't understand the difference between. So basically, apparently, we couldn't afford Kane, but we can afford Højlund, which didn't make sense because in terms of deal, it's still quite up there. It's what, 85 million euros, and the wage is still quite high. We've dropped De Gea off the wage budget. It's a strange one.
How much is Højlund on? Oh, brilliant!
It's not been reported yet.
I heard a rumour it might be under 100, but quite well under 100. So if that's the case, then I think it's now on something like 100.
75k, is it?
Something like that, yeah. So if we get for that, okay, the transfer fee might be a bit excessive, but at least he's not on a wage which is unreasonable, let's say.
So Orstein is reporting that the contract still needs to be finalised. So there must be some.
Just a shout out, by the way, to a small fan base that I've just become aware of. My lad Jake is watching. All right, son. His lovely girlfriend Emma, and I think Emma's brother and potentially his girlfriend. So hi to you all.
Well, there we go. That makes up half of the watching public. Yeah. So that's great news there.
Now he's totally embarrassed, and that's it.
Now he's logged off.
That was logged off.
Yeah. Well, John, I'm going to let you have your say on pre-season just before we move on to the greatest 11. Yeah. I'd also like you to be the one to answer Jake's questions. What do you think of Sancho's future, and should Ahmed get a chance as well?
In regards to Sancho, I know we discussed it. I think we did a show with Stu and Dan a few months back, if I remember rightly. I personally think he's got another year. And in fairness, Sancho, he has looked pretty sharp. I think in the Arsenal game, he discovered an extra yard of pace, which I don't think we've seen, in the 2 years he's been with us. So I do think he's safe for another year, because I can't see a team coming in to pay, because I think United will probably demand a fee which is around what we paid for him. I can't see a team paying that, so I think he's safe for another year. But it's a big season for him, and if he doesn't perform, then I can see him going out the door next summer. As for Ahmad, I'm a bit and ahhing about that one, because I think he's looked good in pre-season, but I think based on what I've seen, I think he's just been a bit, what's the word? He can be a bit indecisive at times. So he looks promising on the ball, but he doesn't make the right decision, to play the right ball at the right time all the time. So for me, I think he's a player which can definitely be looked at. I personally think maybe for him, go on loan to a Premier League team might be, because he obviously did well at Sunderland. I like to see him go to a team in the Premier League, like a stable team, like around mid-table, and if he does perform, then maybe next summer. But maybe similar to Holland, and obviously we signed Ahmad from Atlanta as well, didn't we? I think he's got potential, but I don't think he's quite there yet at this moment.
I want to go out on a limb and just say that Sancho will have a better season than Antony next year. He's if we can utilize him properly, he is going to be a proper player for us. And once he's got, we've spoke about this, me and Stu, loads of times. Once he's got some footballers around him that are as intelligent and are up to his mental level, then he's going to absolutely fly. You can see it in glimpses, and it's so frustrating. He just needs that little bit of the jigsaw to fall in, and I think it might be Amrabat if we get him, but he just needs something to happen for him.
Well, so a little bit of shade being thrown here by Box. That's not hard, apparently. A little bit harsh, but here we go, Jake, giving you a clap. So there you go, well done. Right, we've done that. This is in danger of being overtaken, thanks to our friend Mr. Romano. So we are going to move on to the topic of today's show, which has waited long enough. I'm genuinely excited about this, because this is the sort of chat you have around the pub all the time. Who's the greatest in the position? So here we go with what I'm hoping will be an absolute doozy. So let's just make sure we get the screen up. Just give us a second, and we should now be seeing the Chosen 11 website. There we go. Fan dabby dozy. So with that in mind, let's begin the process. Now, I've got to be honest, I feel like the goalkeeper might be nailed on this one. So we'll go round as we normally do. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what your answers are. So, Andrew, we'll start with you. Who are you thinking is the greatest goalkeeper to ever play for Manchester United?
For me, only one, Peter Schmeichel. The same. Not only one of the great United goalkeepers, but in football in history as well. Just he was a definition of a leader in that team. You know, giving instructions to the defenders, holding the back line to account. You know, just doing his job and putting his body on the line as well. He may have been about 6'4", but he's probably one of the most nimble goalkeepers you could ever see as well. And so, I say, just had about no weaknesses to a game. So, performed every task as a goalkeeper that needed to be at the highest level. And you know, spent 8 seasons with us, and I think he cost just over 500 grand. So, I think he was like the bargain of the decade. So, he won 5 Premier Leagues with us. FA Cup, Champions League, you know, League Cup, Super Cup. So he's definitely also scored a goal for us, and which I was fortunate enough to see in the UEFA Cup against Rota Volgrad in '95. So, but even his final season with us, he went out on a high, winning the treble. So you couldn't ask for that. But he did go and play for the other side of Manchester when he left us afterwards. But like I say, I know that rankles with some United fans, but look, for me, he'll always be a United legend and one of the greatest goalkeepers.
Well, there we go. We've got one vote for Peter Schmeichel. Connor's already getting involved with asking me to zoom in a bit, please, when there's not even anything written on the bleeding screen yet. Got to love Connor for wanting to be able to see that player 1 is currently in goal. Box taking the mickey, I think. Hopefully some honourable mentions for Don, Bebe, David Bellion, of course, and Eric Jemba. But he then
that's my midfield. That was my midfield box. I can't believe it.
Don was a striker.
Well, that's kind of you. Connor Roberts has also gone for Van der Sar in goal. Dav went for Peter. Jennifer going for Alex Stepney. Box, I think, throwing a bit of shade on David De Gea. It's a little bit on the harsh side. There we go. But he has then eventually gone for Schmeichel. Stu.
I had 4.
Schmeichel.
I had 4 actually down. Schmeichel wins it, obviously, hands down. But growing up, Gary Bailey was my first goalkeeper that I was aware of when I was at Manchester United. And he was absolutely tremendous. I think it's a great shout by Box, and he was akin to a modern day goalkeeper actually. The way that he commanded his area and utilised the ball from the back really, really well. Edwin has to have a shout. He does. And Jennifer's spot on with Stepney. Absolute brave as a lion. Stepney was. When I spoke to Stepney about a year ago, I was at an event and he was there and we were chatting, and I asked him what it was like having Eusebio bear down on him, because he's most famous for that. For casual fans of Manchester United, and he said it was just like seeing the Orient Express coming at him at 200 miles an hour. But he said it didn't phase him. Just didn't phase him. He knew what he needed to do. But Schmeichel gets it. I think he's probably a slam dunk to get it. But honourable mention for Gary Bailey, my first ever autograph behind Sir Bobby. Edwin and Alex. But Schmeichel gets it for me.
Nice choices. The goalies when I was growing up, my first ones I think were Les Seeley and Jim Layton. What pairing they were. Big Johnny K, what have you gone for?
Massimo Taibbi.
Yes, that's how you do it.
That's right.
Some of his witty bands are coming out again.
Yeah, so I do agree with you. Some honourable mention there. I think Jack Compton was a pretty good keeper for us in the 40s and 50s as well. I think obviously Harry Gregg as well, and Ray Wood. They were very good goalkeepers for us. But yeah, I think you got to go Schmeichel, I think.
Fan Dabby Dozy. Dan, are you making it 4 from 4?
This is a bit difficult for me because I've picked this team on what I've witnessed with my own eyes more so than the historical facts that I'm told. So as I supported Man United, it was Peter Schmeichel. So then obviously when he retired, we saw the difficulty to replace him. And then we got Van der Sar and it was like Schmeichel had never left. So I've done it slightly different. It's not going to affect goalkeeper, but it might be a bit different going forward. I'm hearing lots of shoo-ins, and I don't think that's going to be the case. No, I went for Schmeichel as well, and then just special mention for Van der Sar and De Gea, to be honest.
I'm glad somebody has mentioned De Gea because
well, when I talk about the gap in the goalkeeper, like when we lost Schmeichel, it was absolutely impossible to replace the guy for ages. We had some adequate replacements, but nothing special until Van der Sar, and then we had less of a problem because De Gea was so good for us.
I agree. I mean, you don't get to be a goalkeeper at a top level club like Manchester United for a decade without having something about you. Especially over what would have been like, what was it, 5 managers? We had Fergie, Van Gaal, Moyes, Mourinho, Solskjaer, Rangnick, so 6, and then into 7, although the 7th did eventually bring the guillotine down. But yeah, that's a lot of people to survive. So yeah, good news there. But there we go. Easy one there. I didn't think for 1 second Schmeichel was on mine as well. So that is a nailed on 5 from 5. Sorted, job done. But now the real work starts because I'm with Dan. I'm not convinced there's going to be loads of shoo-ins, but there will be some very, very interesting discussions. So we shall see. I do see Dan getting outvoted quite a bit potentially. We shall see. We're going to go right back to begin with. So Andrew started last time, so we're going to start with Stu this time. So Stu, who, in your opinion, is the best right back to ever play for Manchester United?
Well, I have 3 at the back, so I don't require a right back. But there is only one shoe-in that can ever go across defence, and that is Sir Dennis Irwin. So I think it's only fair that I tell you my back 3, explain my back 3, and tell you my dilemma with my back 3. Because
okay, so when you've gone 3-5-2,
I'll go 3-5-2, yeah,
right, would be traditional wingers, yes.
Yes, because I won't have a right back or a left back to discuss. So my pool of players. So my pool of players was the great Sir Dennis Irwin, of course, Gary Neville, the most excellent Arthur Albiston, Patrice Evra, Steve Bruce, Rio Ferdinand, and Jaap Stam. Those were my defense. Look, Andrew's laughing because I can tell by
that's 7.
No. That was my pick. I had to pick from those. So I've gone for 3 at the back, and my 3 at the back are Steve Bruce commands the middle. Jaap will command the right side, and Sir Dennis will command the left side. So my 3 are Steve Bruce. That was pure grit, determination, aerial ability, and an ability to score goals. Okay. Sir Dennis Irwin, as Johnny K will testify, he could just do anything. And I mean, absolutely anything. He was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And Jaap Stam was able to defend hard, play hard, but deliver, distribute. He could run with the ball. And that was what I thought was the best back 3 that would complement each other. I struggled with the likes of, and these are old players, John Carey, which I know John will mention, Johnny Carey. I know he'll mention it. I do know you'll mention it. Rafael da Silva was brilliant for us at right back. He was. Patrice Evra, should he have gotten a left back? So that's my reasoning. And I think that is as good as it gets if you're going to go with a back 3 for dimension, for the way that they operate together and what they can offer us. And I know there's a shoe-in in there in Sir Dennis.
Okay, well, we shall definitely see. So Stu's laid out his entire defence, which has made this conversation quite interesting. So, Big Johnny K, I know that everybody else in the panel has gone 4-4-2. So, who did you put in at right back for you?
Well, this is difficult because Stu's right to mention all those players. I do agree that Dennis Irwin is a shoe-in, but for me,
Did you put him as your left back?
Well, this is the thing because, as Stu
You
mentioned,
can't be a shoe-in if you haven't picked him at left back, Johnny K.
Yeah, but
That's
he's
how it
a
works.
shoe to the 11 book, and I just mentioned there's a couple of fullbacks. Johnny Carey, as Stu mentioned, was phenomenal. That was captain. Busby's first captain, won the FA Cup. He was a superb right back for us. And on the left-hand side, you can't ignore the impact of Roger Byrne either. He was a superb left back as well. So this is where I'm making the point. If Dennis Irwin does go in, but do I have him at right back or do I have him at left back? Because for me, if I have him at left back, I'll put Johnny Carey at right back. If I have Irwin at right back, I'll probably have Roger Byrne at left back.
Yeah.
So for me, I would probably say Dennis Irwin for right back.
Very interesting. He did spend most of his time as left back, didn't he?
But he did play at right back though.
I'm not having this.
Hold tight. It's not your go yet, Dan, but you'll definitely get a go in a minute. I'm very intrigued with what's happening here, but now we've let the older generation have a chat here. It might change. It might. We'll see. Go on, Dan. It's your go. What do you reckon? Who's your right back?
So can we just put players wherever we want?
No.
Well, no, because they are right. Dennis Irwin was a right-footed player, and he played at left back generally, but he was perfectly capable of playing.
Played right back at Oldham. Played right back at Oldham.
There's no problems with that one.
He did.
Played right back at Oldham. That's where we got him from.
Right back for us as well.
He did.
Well,
So it's not the other realms, Dan.
I base my picks on the 2/3 players that have held that position basically since I started watching them, which was Neville, Raphael, and then Valencia / for a little bit. But I thought this was quite easy. I thought Gary Neville. I don't think there's much in terms of natural position. Gary Neville played right back for his entire career.
Started off as centre half.
Yes.
Yeah, for Man United, the glory years, let's say, he was
He started off as centre half.
the shoe-in right back.
Okay, so you've definitely gone Gary Neville at right
Yeah,
back.
definitely Gary Neville.
Okay. Which is interesting because that's what I went for. So I'll throw that one out there now as well. I still think Gary Neville the greatest right back that I've seen. You know, Paul Parker's up there with a shout for sure. But I thought Gary Neville he worked so brilliantly with Beckham down that right-hand side, and the overlap was just always there. Hard working, a great leader, and he ate Scousers. So what more can you ask for? That's the song, people don't get upset. Andrew, you sang that song many times. Did you pick Gary Neville, or have you gone for somebody else at right back?
No, it was Gary Neville for me. I think maybe for younger fans who see him as a pundit now, probably forget how incredible a right back he was. You know, he's the epitome of a one club man. So and achieving the rare feat of winning the Champions League twice in his career as well as a player. So making over 400 appearances for United as well. So it's definitely one of the best defensive right backs. You know, ones that could overlap with the right wing, including Becks and Ronaldo as well. So you say he was a scrappy, tenacious player. I think he always said wasn't the most technical player, but he always worked hard at these to play football as well. So he did whatever he could to help United win. So yeah, Gary Neville for me.
Okay, so I think where we stand at the moment is that.
Well, it's 4-4-2. Yeah, you've got to run
where
with
we stand at the moment is 3 people have said Gary Neville for right back. So we'll pop him in there for the moment. But obviously, when we get to centre back, this could change as to whether or not Stu can woo us with his 3 at the back idea. With that in mind, we'll nip over to the left because I put Dennis Irwin at left back. So, Big Johnny K, I would assume that based on the fact that we currently have 3 and for Neville at right back, you would go Irwin left back?
Yeah, I would.
Okay. And of course, Stu's already mentioned Irwin. Andrew, would you have chosen Dennis Irwin as your left back?
Definitely. as much as like Patrice Evra, I'm just thinking Dennis Irwin was one of the greatest United left backs. So yeah, it had to be him for me.
Brilliant. And Dan?
Yeah, Dennis Owen as well. Special mention to
There we
Everett.
go. That was a shoe-in for sure. That's a 5 out of 5 again. 5 for 5.
It was
We
always
love
a
that. We've only
shame,
had 2 of
Dennis.
those out of the 3 so far. But that's pretty good. So we will put him in. The man who only got 1 red card in his career, I believe. And that was all thanks to Arsenal. Boom. Never mind. Giggsy took him apart, didn't he? So that's them. Centre backs now. This is where it's going to become interesting because trying to whittle down the number of centre backs. You already heard Stu mention some of the people that he did. After Augustin, obviously Bruce, Ferdinand, Stam. I think there's a name missing off of there, which
Me
might
too.
be the one that I throw out. In fact, my middle 2 weren't even on Stu's list. So I'll throw mine out at the end. John, it's your turn to start. Who was your centre-back pairing?
This is a difficult one because there's one certain player I want to get into this Grace 11, but I'm not sure where to put him, and that's Duncan Edwards. I don't know who's putting it in the 11, whether you want to put him in midfield or
He
whether you want
holds. He holds, John. He holds.
Yeah,
He holds.
so maybe the midfield then. So in that case, you got to mention Bill Folkes as well. He played over 600 games for us and scored us the goal which sent us to Wembley in 6-8. So honourable mention, but based on what I see, you got to try and get an older player in there. So I might go with.
If it helps you at all, John, Duncan
yeah.
Edwards was one of my 2.
Yeah. In defence.
Yeah.
Right, I'll go Edwards then, and then I'll go with Stam.
Yeah, that's a pairing, that is.
Yeah.
That's 2 for Stam.
That's a
2
pairing.
for Stam,
that is.
2 for Edwards.
That really is a pairing.
Yeah.
Isn't it? You wouldn't mess about with them. That's
No.
for sure.
I mean, I didn't put Duncan Edwards in my team, and that's because I would have put him as a holding player, but I have picked the dream midfield. So it's not that he wouldn't get into my team because he would. It just wouldn't fit my team.
No, we get you.
Yeah.
But Dan, you're going for people with your eyes, so I can gather that you're probably not going to go for Duncan Edwards. So what was your partnership?
Ferdinand and Vidic.
Ferdinand and Vidic.
I'm shocked that no one said Vidic so far.
Vidic was my second. So we are going to be in a very interesting situation when we get to Andrew Wall.
The problem that, just a quickie. I was just going to say with Vidic, Dan, you've got Martin Buchan who could hold a light to him. Big Gordon McQueen could hold a light to him. It's a tricky one, really. Centre half. Vidic made my bench. There you go.
I didn't see any of them play, Stu. So
no, I know. Yeah, he made my bench, Vidic.
Tell us why you picked Vidic and Ferdinand. Other than the fact that you
it was just a quality partnership that we relied on heavily when I was growing up. It was the go-to. If we had them, you always felt calm. There was obviously times Vidic struggled against, I think it was Torres that he sometimes had a few misdemeanors against, but it was normally such a calm partnership. And if depending on how you're picking your team, the partnership there was one of the better ones. Very
interesting. So Andrew Wall, we're going to have to ask you what your 2 was initially. So who were your first 2?
So my first was Vidic. I was one of the most formidable defenders in the modern game. So he was the perfect partner for Rio Ferdinand. So I mean, when he initially came, he had to adapt to the Premier League, and I thought, is he going to make it? But he certainly did, and he had a considerable influence on the pitch. And quelled, the talents of the most accomplished forwards. I know there's it goes out there that Fernando Torres always used to get the better of him, but I think they played against each other in 11 games. I think Torres got the better of him in about 3 of them. So to say Torres always was always the better of him. It's not quite true. I think that's a myth out there. But Vida was like, you just put his body on the line for everything. So, and he's the perfect fall alongside Rio Ferdinand. The second one was a bit more difficult because I was between Rio and Amsterdam, and I was like debating this in my mind. But I went with Rio in the end. I'll just say he was just one of the great centre backs for United as well. So intelligent defender. I think he was like one of the new breed of defenders. Ball playing defenders. And could distribute the ball, and also his technical ability as well. So, but I say it was just the perfect partnership then too. So, but Amsterdam ran it so close for me. So one of the strong defenders in the Premier League, always alert and composed, and say him and Johnson together were a good partnership as well. And say, as Fergie once said, he regretted selling Amsterdam. We should have kept him longer, but it was what it was. But yeah, Rio and Vida for me.
So Rio, interesting. So what this means, boys, is that as it stands, we can say Vidic made it because he got 3 votes. So majority rules, it's not a dictatorship. What it does mean is that we are stuck with 3 players on 2 votes. Those 3 players being Rio Ferdinand, Yip Yamstam, and the mighty Duncan Edwards. So it's either beholden on the
I've got the answer to that then, Baz.
Go on then.
I've got the answer. Just put Bruce in.
Which is interesting that he's only got 1 vote, Stu, and that's you.
and that's the right vote. It's the right vote.
So I had a really big problem in the same as what Andrew's just said, which is I was struggling to pick between Stam and Ferdinand, and I ended up going with Ferdinand because the partnership of Ferdinand and Vidic would work better. So this is where I got stuck in terms of moving away from them. So that as a partnership, we saw them play together. So we saw what they achieved together. Champions League, Premier Leagues. The others are like hypothetical.
Well, this is where Stu's argument, because with Edwards, I personally think you got to get Duncan Edwards in there somehow, and I'd be interested to know what your formation is, Shunab, because for me, if it's going to 4-4-2, I think you might have to play Edwards as a centre half. If you go with Stu's formation, you can maybe push him into midfield.
Midfield in my formation.
It's
worth pointing out about Bruce, though. Probably scored more goals than Stam, Rio, and Vidic combined. I think Johnny will tell me that. Didn't he score about 30 in one season?
He was a joint top scorer with Mark Hughes in. I think he had 19, 20. He scored like 12 penalties in the season.
I think there's no doubting Steve Bruce was a legend. We're absolutely, there's no getting away from that. I think all 3 of those players have got a right to be there. Rio Ferdinand definitely was one of the best defenders we saw. Yapstam, superb. But so was Duncan Edwards. And I think, again, just throwing that.
I've got no problem with Edwards. I've got no problem with Duncan Edwards.
Well, I think you are going to have to be the one to make the decisions, Stu, based on the fact that you're the only one who hasn't said any of those 3 yet. Nobody else seems to come off their horse.
If we go with Stu's formation, we might as well put Edwards in, because then we can maybe push him along if we were to change formation.
Then you've got to lose Neville or Vidic.
Oh, I'd happily lose Neville.
Yeah. Look, if it was down to me,
hotel.
If I was the deciding vote, then Duncan Edwards gets it, even over Yapstam, because he was just. But if it's the consensus, and just hear me out here just for a quick second, both Andrew and Dan were on the edge with Yapstam. So I don't know, but if I'm the deciding vote, it goes to Edwards.
Right, we'll go with that. We'll see what happens with the midfield, because again, this could all change based on what Stu's done in the middle. But yes, I think for me, I'm quite pleased because so far this is actually the team that I picked, so I'm quite content with that. But yeah, I think Duncan Edwards. Like I say, I once met up with a guy who played against him and said, without doubt, unquestionably the best player he's ever played against. So, who knows what he would have done? Interesting. How does Stan not make it? Because you're not in charge, Connor. Take that. It's a democracy, mate. This is what happens when everybody's views. Yeah. Right. We are going to move to the midfield with the knowledge that could change. We'll start, I think, on the left-hand side because, again, personally, I feel like there's only one name genuinely that can go down on the left-hand side regardless, but it'll be very interesting to see what happens. I think we've made it round to Dan, so it is your turn to give us who your left midfielder is. The greatest left winger to ever play for Manchester United is
that winger or midfielder?
What's the left midfielder? The one that would be player number 8.
Ryan Giggs. Just simply because he's an absolute legend. And what is it, 13 Premier League titles? Right up there in appearances for the club. His off the field stuff's obviously sorted itself out now over whatever's happened. But yeah, for me, it's Ryan Giggs growing up. So
very interesting. That's
just the goal against Arsenal as well.
I'll make it easy. I went for Giggs as well. There was nobody else for me. So
no. Andrew? Sorry, John. You go first if you want, John. I don't care. You two fight it out.
Go on, Andrew. Go on, Andrew.
I'm finding this difficult because I know I should say Giggs, but I'm just thinking because I know Ronaldo played on the left as well. I'm trying to fit.
He's trying to do the John Commode here.
Yeah.
Think of the balance. Think of the balance, Andrew. Think of the balance.
Well, if I'm thinking of the balance, it has to be Ryan Giggs then. So I would go with Giggsy. So yeah, on the left. So we're going for balance.
Yeah. Gone Giggs, John.
Yeah.
Yeah, and an interesting thing about Giggs is that all the major honours we've won as a club in total. Like 60 odd major titles we've won. Giggs has won more than half of them.
Which is quite
in his career. So for me, yes, I do think you got to go with Giggs.
Just remember that, John, when we're picking the right hand side.
Yeah, that's the reason why I didn't go for that first. Then, so there we go. Let's just see what a few people said. Dav's gone Giggs. Connor has gone for Ronaldo on the left for that reason. Niall, hi, welcome. Jennifer going for Hill.
Jennifer. I mean, that's my era. That is Helen Coppell. Yeah. They were no nonsense wingers, right? They would get the ball, they would run, and they would cross. No nonsense. The end. That's it. That's all they did, and they were
brilliant.
Yeah. They were masters at it. Absolutely,
I mean,
great shout.
You've also got to have an honourable mention for players like David Pegg as well. He was left midfield. I know Billy Meredith was a wing. I'm not sure whether he was on the left or right either. But yeah, David Pegg will be close. But yeah, Golden Hill Coppell were obviously excellent players.
Peggy was graceful, wasn't he? Very graceful player. Lovely player.
Very interesting. Connors said, no, Giggs should never make any team anymore.
Well, no, he is right. That's off field, but it
is off field. It's a slightly different situation to those that we're used to. Again, I think for this one, you've got to separate the fact that he was a fantastic footballer.
Well, then if you're not going to pick Giggs, you can't pick Ronaldo either.
He's made a great point.
Ronaldo did play on the left as
well. Connor, take that one. I think you're out for the count there, mate. I look forward to seeing what you put out on there. Looking forward to it. Yeah. And Blotch has gone all 4. He's not messing about. He's gone Giggs, Charlton, Scholes, and Best. Be very interesting. I think you're on a very similar sort of level, young man. So for that reason, We're going to go with the right wing first, and I've deliberately left down until last on this one to see whether it'll be a soul voice or not. Listen, mate, I'll be turning WhatsApp onto mute after this one. Just so you know, I'll be uncontactable for the next 48 hours. Andrew Wall, who in your mind is the greatest right midfielder to ever grace the hallowed turf of Old Trafford?
This is same difficult like the left side, like Ronaldo, Giggs, Beckham. I'm gonna have to go with Cristiano. Just one of the greatest United players. Okay, the second time he came to United, Zidane's gone. I don't think he's happy with that. No, I just think.
Oh, now you've got to forget the off the field stuff. Man's gone mad. Sorry.
No, I just think what Ronaldo brought. He could either play on the wing or as a playmaker. Later in his United career, he was more centrally as well. But it was a nightmare for defenders. Running at them. He took some of probably the most brutal fouls you'd seen in the Premier League at the time. So it was his flair that we've not seen before. But he was combining that with his intelligent attacking play as well. And what he then went on to do is just we moulded Ronaldo into that player he would become as well. So I was torn on that one between him and Bex. So I just thought, but I haven't seen Ronaldo live as well. I'm just going to have to slightly edge it towards him on the right.
Well, Niall has gone for George Best, and I can confirm that's who I chose to go on the right wing. I chose the Belfast boy himself, George Best. Stu, have you gone Ronaldo? Have you gone Best? Or have you gone for somebody else? 1 second. Scalzi on the right. This would be a very interesting situation.
Well, Ericsson played on the left, didn't he?
Yeah, I transparency right now. I'm going to tell you, I didn't pick the Holy Trinity, and that was one of the toughest ever decisions I've had to make. And the reason I didn't the reason I didn't pick them is because they wouldn't sit with my formation. I picked a side of legends and balance. And if I was to explain my 11, then I would be able to. I'd be able to go with this. So look, my right midfielder is Bex, and it's a balance and a ball ability reason for why I've gone for Bex. Now, people will say, why haven't we gone with Best? And look, absolutely. You can only fit 11 footballers into a team. That's all you can do. And when you're doing this, it becomes almost impossible to run with what you perceive to be the very best 11. Let me tell you why George Best wouldn't get in my side, which is ridiculous. And I know, and I should be getting pelters, and I'm happy to get pelters. And I'm happy for it. I really am. Is that he's too much? He wouldn't deliver for my front two, and I need somebody to deliver. My front two are all about delivery, and that's the only reason Best doesn't get into my.
That's a fair point.
And no, Box is right. He's right. Give me grief, because what do you do when you've got the Holy Trinity? What do you do?
You pick him,
and. Out of other, I'm sorry, guys. Further transparency, I must tell you, Ronaldo doesn't make my starting 11 either.
Doesn't make mine either.
I must tell you that. So that's the only reason I haven't gone with Best, guys. I apologise, but it's Best.
I chose mine based on how they played for Manchester United, nowhere else. And Ronaldo became the superstar he was away from us. Hence why I didn't pick him. Big Johnny K. We are in a tricky situation at the moment where we've had three people say three different things. Who have you gone for?
Only one, George Best.
Go on, my son.
Again, I've got no argument with it. I don't. I don't.
I think, I understand your points, Stu, but I don't think you can have a best in absolute 11 without having best in it.
Well, when you see
I think-
one two, you'll understand.
Yeah,
When you
yeah.
see you'll
Yeah.
get it. You will. I know you will. I know.
Yeah,
I know you.
But,
You'll get it.
So,
of
with regards to
course,
right wing,
I know at times that maybe he didn't have the most successful in his career. He only really won 2 league titles in the European Cup, but I think he's still spoken about at 50 years after he played. So for me, he's got a bit best in my opinion.
I mean, Box's midfield is tremendous. It
Box
really
isn't
is.
far away from me. He's really not.
Oh, really? Oh, well, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
But
Absolutely nothing wrong with that
the
at
big
all.
problem we've got here is that I don't even need Dan to speak. We all know that he's gone for Sir David of the Becks.
He's right.
All right, Dan?
You are.
Which means Andrew Wall, as the only person to choose Cristiano Ronaldo, best is drawn on 2 with David Beckham. So you are going to have to.
Can I just make a point?
You can try.
So the reason that I picked Beckham over Ronaldo was because if you take away Beckham's time at United, we would lose 6 titles and 6 Premier Leagues and a Champions League. If you take away Ronaldo's time, we would only lose 3 leagues in a Champions League.
I do agree with you. I got Beckham over Ronaldo.
I just think that he's. We're not doing players here. I'm not saying Beckham is a better player than Ronaldo. I'm just saying that his legacy for Manchester United was bigger because Ronaldo's biggest legacy is Real Madrid, not Man United.
I mean, he was, but you're arguing over Ronaldo. We've already decided hasn't made it onto the right wing.
No, I'm just trying to plant that in Andrew's head.
And it's good. But what you need to point out is that David Beckham doesn't have a statue, and the one that he did have was made by James Corden and looked nothing like him.
Yeah,
so
shocking.
Very important that we remember that George Best is in the Holy Trinity for a reason, and that's because that geezer done things with the football that would make Ronaldo's eyes bleed. So,
it was sad. I was crying. I was literally in tears because it's and rightly so. Fans have said, "How do you not put Best, Charlton, or Law in there? What's your problem?" And you'll see when my team unfolds, you'll get it. But I just
If
so
it
come on,
helps,
Andrew,
I
you
had
better think in
Beckham.
time. You're going to have to let him go down, otherwise we'll never get done. Who are you going for, Andrew?
This is so hard. I'm just to the great. If I'm going to go on what Stu says, the balance of the side, and because Gary Neville's up right back as well, I would have to go with David Beckham. I think because they complemented each other really well.
That's it, job done. I'm off.
We're picking a virtually all Premier League team apart from Edwards.
I'm not disputing George Best is the best. I'm just like,
and
but again, I'm not. Just so
can we just have them
clear, guys.
both in there on the right?
Just so we're clear, guys.
But Best did play on the left wing. Do you have him at
Played up top as well, so
I'm not removing Ryan Giggs for George Best.
I picked my team based on the team, not the era. The team. I picked it on the team. I think Barry, it's probably a good idea that I go with my midfield 3 because I'm the only one with 3 in the middle.
Correct. That was going to be my next thing to say. So which 3 have you gone for?
Well, I'm about to unveil the greatest midfield 5. I think I think Manchester United would see, and it's a very, very simple midfield for me. And Ince doesn't make it, which is crazy because I modelled my game on Paul Ince when I was growing up. But my midfield 3,
what he's told me, it's Jemba, Bellion.
Yeah, correct.
Bebe, wasn't it?
No, my midfield 3 is very, very simple. It's Robbo, Keane, and Scholes. That is the greatest with Becks and Giggs. Now, John, you can see where I'm going with my team, can't you? From a balanced side, it's absolutely perfect. That 3, it's perfect. It's just perfect. It really is. It's like an hourglass woman. It's perfect.
Well, there we go. That's who he's gone for.
Just to throw, and you know
Sam's,
what that means. Bobby Charlton doesn't make my 11.
which is interesting. I can confirm my two. You've named one of them. So Roy Keane was one of my two. I felt that he needed to be there, and he would be basically my midfield was the one that Box did, but rather than Scholes, I put Keane in because if you're going to have someone who sits and holds, who better than Roy Keane to marshal that defence? I know what you're going to say, Stu, Brian Robson, but I've had this argument with people before.
I've got no issue.
He's just my man. I can't say otherwise. But I did go for Charlton. How I'd almost say how can you not? Purely because the guy was the top scorer for so long. Hang on a second. What's he
Again, no. And this is where I go back to Johnny. Duncan Edwards would fix my team perfectly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I've just got to respond to Connor here. You're saying time at United, Bobby Charlton was literally the appearance and goal scoring guru whilst in an attacking midfield position for Manchester United. So if you're going to come at me for time at United, do your homework, Connor. Literally.
Just pull Jennifer's comments up. She knows what she's talking about, Jennifer. She knows it. She's right. She knows.
Yeah.
There you go. That's. But when I tell you my old team, I think you'll understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
God, fucking hard, isn't it?
Interesting. Right, coming in, John. Who have you gone for? Who's your two?
Oh, I know who's gone for.
Robson and Charlton.
Yeah, I knew that straight away.
Robson and Charlton. You got
I knew
it.
it straight away.
No.
Okay.
I knew we would fall on Robbo, me and you. I knew that.
Robbo has to go in, and this is where I do support your formation. If you could maybe push Edwards up, and then you'd obviously have more about. And I think Edwards could possibly push up anyway and leave Vidic to. And I thought that's why I would have gone with Stam over Vidic, because I think Stam could have commanded a fee and pushed them up, that kind of thing into midfield. And I think if you have that, you can have Robbo and you can have Charlton. So for me, I will go with those two.
Yeah,
well, there we go. I can see what Connor's done there. Andrew, have you gone for Robson as one of your two?
Yeah, I have.
Or did he crash out?
I'm just in that comment. I feel like, do we get this story out of the way now?
Don't cause another car crash, Andrew, or Connor for that matter.
Should we just get it out there? Yes, I was involved in a car accident, and yes, one of the people involved was Brian Robson. There you go. I crashed into Brian Robson.
No, you always one. Pick him.
There you go. It's all out there. So back to the midfield.
Charlton might have ended up in Preston. Robson nearly ended up in Preston after that.
Right.
Anyway, Andrew, middle team.
Yeah, middle team. Firstly, for me, Roy Keane. He was just, probably one of the most feared and respected of his generation. So crossing past with him was like, akin to, well, for the opposition was akin to like a death sentence. With his brutal challenges. And at times, if he was in today's game, he'd probably want to get away with most of the challenges he's put in. He'd be sent off more times than he was playing. So, but just his tenaciousness and his will to win and drive his teammates on. He always wanted the best for United. And also, he could read the game really well, and he was a gifted passer as well. So, but yeah, Roy Keane in the middle for me. Alongside him, it has to be Paul Scholes. I know people like saying now Kevin De Bruyne is like one of the greatest midfielders, but before that was Paul Scholes. He could literally do anything in the middle of the park. So I know initially when he came through United first team, he was playing more up top as a forward, but then came back towards the midfield as well. So, but I mean, you just look at some of the goals that Scholes scored as well. So, but I'm thinking, but also you could just read the game as well, like Keane could, just like his, technical ability, and just like his passing range, he could just literally just look up, just ping a pass, and it just land on a teammate's foot. So it just, Scholes and Keane for me, the two midfielders. So that's
Paul Scholes was my favourite ever player I saw live, and that. But and I think you can put in a strong case for him and that. But yeah, I think there's a base you got to put in. I think.
Dan, who's your two?
I'll tell you what, I think I find this a lot easier than some of you because I've just based it on what I've seen instead of like.
Shall we just change it to the best Premier League?
Going a bit
Add to
deeper.
the fact.
I was hoping that like more of you would pick the Holy Trinity, so it'd be a bit more of an argument.
Well, that's what I mean. I wanted best.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
John, I'm being funny, mate. I've been there with you. It's not like the debate hasn't been had.
I've simply gone for Scholes and Keane. I just think that was the midfield that worked.
Charlton's not made it then.
He's not.
Charlton's not made it.
But don't worry, it's not over yet. But as it stands, Scholes and Keane have made it in. Connie, you see, this is how it happens. Just to point out, I might be thinking one thing, but if the panel says the other, then the panel says the other. That's how it works.
Right, Carrick gets an honourable mention.
Yep.
He does.
Yeah.
Vastly
Magic.
underrated.
Paddy Crerand.
Yeah.
Some great
Paddy
players.
Crerand.
Nobby Styles.
Eddie Coleman.
Yeah, hell of a footballer, Nobby.
So, you see, people are going to say this, and you've got to remember, we've got Dan who doesn't know football from before 1993. So, as a result, he's never going to pick people before there. And you can't underestimate. It's no good just going into the 99 team and being upset about the fact that some of the recent players have made it because they were unreal. The older players were great, but they didn't win a treble. So, you are going to have these sorts of arguments. And this is what makes this argument so great. And different people have chosen their teams for different things. Stu's gone for balance. I've gone for who I feel is the best in each position. So we'll see how we go. But
This is going to be fascinating.
This is the really hard bit because this is the only one where I've got 3 for 2. So
mine were shoe-ins. Both of mine were shoe-ins for me.
It's interesting how you say that. It'll be interesting.
Mine's
to see where
definitely not getting in.
Dan, I'm going to let you start, mate. Which 2 have you gone for?
Mine's definitely not getting in here. So I went for Wayne Rooney and Eric Cantona.
Now, both very interesting shouts. Wayne Rooney, top goal scorer for Manchester United. So, there's a perfect shout there. And Cantona, probably the best £1 million signing in the history of the world.
Cantona in particular, he was that perfect signing for the players that are behind him, let's say. He literally kicked on a decade of success and an incredible treble. And then Wayne Rooney was just... When you talk about balance and wanting to shift players around, etc., Gary Neville could play centre forward and Rooney would cover for him. So he was just the perfect player.
I'm gobsmacked here as to what's going on. And for some reason, Connor's going in with it. Your stock's going down on this channel, Connor, as it goes. Some interesting people. Ronnie Johnson coming on for Vidic. Great shout. Dav's got the right answer there. He's gone for Rooney and Rude. But then he's gone for Cantona over Rude, which was basically... Andrew, who have you gone for? Who's your front 2?
First for me, it's got to be Eric Cantona, just like an absolute genius he was on the pitch. Okay, there was a few times where he had a few indiscretions on the pitch, but he certainly made up for it, with his talent on the pitch. And he drove us to that, the first league title in 26 years. But he was definitely my first choice as one of the forwards. The second one, I could have put anybody in. It was just alongside him. But I don't think I could have put Wayne Rooney in. So I've seen him play live, and he was, like I say, on his day, Wayne Rooney was stoppable. You could say the likes of Robin van Persie. Number 20 delivered title to 20 to us as well, and there's others. But I just think because he was such a predator in the box, so I'm going to have to go Ruud van Nistelrooy. He might not quite have got the same amount of winners' medals as others did in the United squad, and obviously his time at United came to a bit of a sour end. But he was just literally lethal in the 18-yard box, and literally give him the ball and he would score. So I'm going to go Eric and Ruud as my top 2.
Very interesting. Stu,
Honourable
Rail
mentions.
pair.
Yeah, mine were a tissue in it, and no other two even came into the equation. Honourable mentions, though, to Big Joe Jordan for me, Stuart Pearce and Frank Stapleton. Gary Birtles, in his day when he came on, young Beardo before he left to go to Newcastle. We've had a plethora of lethal number nines, but very, very simply and without hesitation, Big Rude and Eric. And Johnny K is now nodding appreciation because he completely understands my formation and my team. And that is why George Best couldn't make it into my 11, because he wouldn't deliver for the Predator, which was Rude. And Eric could play the 9 perfectly as well. That's why I went with Giggs and Bex.
There we go. Johnny K, who have you gone for?
My two didn't play in the Premier League era. I went for Dennis Law and Tommy Taylor.
Yeah.
Tommy Taylor was a superb forward for us, and if it wasn't for Munich, he probably would have been one of our all-time great players, I think. And Dennis Law, Dennis Law, isn't he? So,
do you know, Dennis was unlucky, wasn't he, to have Greavesy in and around that time period, because Greavesy was just on a different planet, wasn't he, Jimmy Greaves?
Well, if I was to swap one player, but the reason I don't think Rooney and Cantona quite works is because they kind of like dropped deep and they weren't outside goal scorers. So for me, I think if you're going to pick, you can pick Cantona, but also a goal scorer. Same with Rooney and a goal scorer. I don't think having both of them there quite works, in my opinion.
I've written Cantona in because I went Cantona. He was the only one in a box as my absolute shoe in, because that man just changed everything. He took what was, a team that was fighting for everything into a team that began to win everything. So he was Cantona the catalyst for sure. So for me, he had to go. But that left me in a horrific position between three, and I'm really pleased because they're three people that were named by all of you, which was Ruud van Nistelrooy, Dennis Law, and Wayne Rooney. All have their own merits. Wayne Rooney, as we say, top goal scorer of all time for Manchester United. Dennis Law, the king before Cantona was even a sparkle in his mother's eye. And Ruud van Nistelrooy, quite simply, the finest striker I think I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely deadly. And again, the tricky part is the corner I've backed myself into is what they did for the club. And I'm struggling. The simple news is if I go Ruud van Nistelrooy, he's in. If I go Rooney or Law, then we've got a fight on our hands.
Let me explain why I went with Ruud over Dennis. I went with Ruud over Dennis because Ruud could score a different type of goals. He was better in the air than Dennis. Dennis was brilliant on the deck. Yeah, absolutely tremendous. I felt he got better movement than Law, just slightly better movement than Law. And the reason I paired Cantona with him, I thought he offered that balance I was looking for of predatory and finesse. That was my two. That's the thinking why I went with Ruud over Dennis.
In my opinion, I'll go with Law because I think it was very much a team player. I think Van Nistelrooy was a superb goal scorer, the best goal scorer we had during the Premier League era. I think at times during this period, it's worth mentioning we only won one Premier League with it. I know we had the transition and that. I felt at times we were playing to his strengths, and as opposed to beforehand and after he left, we played a bit more as a team. That's why I will personally put Law in instead of Van Nistelrooy.
My link is Eric. That's my link through the midfield. Mm-hmm. Where you've gone with Law as your link, my link is Eric. That's how I've done it. So,
I think Law was the predator, the 6-yard box, though.
Oh no, absolutely. You know, he would get you headed goals, but they were diving headers. You know, it's how it was. Where
So,
Rude had a brilliant ability to be able to take the ball on his chest with one or two players in and around. Different eras, you know, Dennis didn't need to do that. He could have, but he didn't need to do that back in the day.
Well,
you know, he didn't. You know, he didn't need to play that type of game. It's yeah.
my
it's a
heart,
different one. I wouldn't
my
be
heart
able
wants to go with Dennis Law. My
I wouldn't be
eyes
able-
want to go with
I
Ruud van
wouldn't
Nistelrooy.
Law.
My head wants to go with Wayne Rooney. And my head is going to win it. So I'm going to go for Wayne Rooney, because how can you not have the top goal scorer of all time for your club in there? Which means it's a fight between Rooney and Ruud van Nistelrooy, but I don't think that is a fight that will necessarily get won here, with the exception of the fact that, Johnny, you were the one who chose Dennis Law. So if you had to choose between Rooney and Ruud van Nistelrooy, who would you pick?
well, I think because you have Cantona, I don't think Cantona and Rooney would work, because I think they much had the same role. So if you're going to play Cantona, I think you've probably got to go Van Nistelrooy as the goal scorer.
You have. Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, Connor at this point has probably exploded. So I look forward to seeing that. Which leads us to our final question, gang. Our final question is this. That's our team. 4-4-2. Schmeichel, Aaron at left back. Duncan Edwards managed to get in there with Nemanja Vidic and Gary Neville. Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, Roy Keane, David Beckham. What a midfield. With Ruud van Nistelrooy and Cantona. I'm gobsmacked myself. There's names here that you would never imagine would go off. So really, we've got two questions really on this one. What we could do is we could have a substitute for each area. So defense, midfield, attack, and goalie. So they would be our honourable mentions. Or there is the opportunity to change this formation. So is there anyone who's looking at that defense, apart from Stu, who's already maintained 3, that would like to remove someone from that defense to put into either midfield or attack? In other words, are we going to get Charlton or Rooney in somewhere? Because they appear to be, or even Robson.
I personally think what you could
think
do
you've got
is
to
maybe
have a
move
line.
Edwards into midfield.
Yeah, I think you take.
And then maybe that way you can get Charlton in.
I think
Who into midfield, sorry, John?
Hang on, wait a minute.
If you do that, John, you've got to take Neville out and put in Yap.
Yeah.
If you do that.
Yeah, I would have Yap in over Neville anyway. So yeah.
Okay, Andrew, would you take Neville out to put in another midfielder or attacker?
Probably not. I'm just like
Probably not.
4-4-2 formation. So yeah.
Okay, Dan, would you?
No, I wouldn't take Neville out.
No, Dom.
The problem is, if we swapped formation, I'd probably find myself swapping some players further up.
Possibly.
Because I've gone for balance in the team that I've picked. So I've picked all but 2 of those players. So if you was to take out Neville and change the formation, I wouldn't then be convinced that Beckham should be in it.
I'll tell you what. Let's do something, because I know we've got to wrap up. But let's. Why don't we each go through our team briefly, explain why you've gone with that team, and then that might help the viewers understand why. Because what do you do? You know, and they're right. Why don't you, there is no Ronaldo, there is no Robson in there, there is no Rooney, no Best, no Law, no Charlton.
Well, we can name the substitutes. We never came up with a substitute goalkeeper. I presume we'd all go for Van der Sar anyway, if that was the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we can put him as the sub goalie. It would be between Rio and Stam. I think Rooney's made the subs bench regardless when it comes to attacker. The only ones we had that were joint were Rio and Stam and Robson and Charlton. So that's your argument, really. So let's go for the defence first. And we're just going to go for names here. It's like you say, we need to wrap up. And we said he had an hour, and we've already taken 25 minutes off of that. So he's about to get slapped when he comes off. So Andrew, Rio or Stam?
Rio.
Stu?
Stam. Yep, Stam all day long.
John?
Stam.
Dan?
Rio.
I would go Stam. So
Thank
that's
you.
solved. Robson or Charlton? Andrew?
Just the problem with them.
Charlton.
Charlton?
Yeah.
Stu?
I've got to stand. I put Robbo in, so I've got to stand by.
Yeah, you chose that. John?
Charlton.
Dan?
Yeah, Charlton.
And I would have gone Charlton as well. So that means the subs bench will be Van der Sar, Stam, Charlton, and Rooney. So there we go. Those would be
Charlton
those.
could play up top as well.
You could.
Who?
Yeah.
Charlton. I
Charlton,
genuinely
yeah.
thought you said Galton there for a minute. I'm like,
Best could play at top as well. Best could play as a 10.
Yeah.
right. Well, that will be sent out via our Twitter.
You're going to get some pelters.
Oh,
We're gonna get
mate.
absolutely
Definitely.
pelted for that.
Imagine
What's
putting that
new?
on Twitter with no explanation of how it's been picked, no like background. Just
won't
oh,
tell
this
you
is
that.
how
It's a Premier League. No,
They're gonna go mad.
Get absolute pelted for that if that goes out on Twitter.
Just a link to the show, I think, is all we'll do there. People have made some really interesting things, and this is absolutely it. I think Box has hit the nail right on there. It's an impossible task. When you're Man United, the greatest football team of all time, how do you pick just 11?
Exactly. Can I just point out, by the way, my team would go undefeated. We would win the quadruple, my team. Absolutely win the quadruple. If you can imagine, you've got your back three of Irwin, Bruce and Stam, Big Schmikes at the back, and then you've got two wingers of Giggs and Beckham, the three midfielders of Robbo, Keane and Scholes, and two magicians up top. That team is your perfect woman in every way. It's aggressive, it's got finesse, it's got ability, it just oozes everything.
Well, I think even the team we've picked at the end of that would have a very good chance of doing that as well. I have to say, had I seen this prior to making that decision, I might have put something in the private chat just to see if he'd do an Elon Musk or whether he'd go through with it. But there we go. And Jennifer's gone, replay next week. I don't think I've got it in me. We might have to do that next year. See whether or not these two, amazingly, have made it or not.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows where the future goes?
Gang, it was everything I expected it to be and a whole lot more besides. My thanks to you all. Cheers, Dan. Cheers, Andrew, or Dandrew, as we'll now call you. And cheers, Stu and John. It's been an absolute delight. Thank you in the comments. Again, you guys keeping us going with everything that you had to say. We'll post this out on Twitter. Feel free to have your say, and we'll see you next Saturday.
Don't
Right,
tag me in then.